Right, we are live on YouTube and good to go. Board Chair Fry.
Present.
Commissioner Bissell.
Here.
Commissioner Bicknell.
Present.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
And Commissioner Thiel.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Great.
All right, so Tuesday wrapped up trunk or treat. We had a estimate via clicker count of 1,100 trick-or-treaters. It was a success in my book. We've gotten some compliments online and in person. So that was a huge success. Next up is Winterfest. So this year, the first time since 2019, we're opening up the fire station bay again to have vendors and a little bazaar in there. And that's going to be from 4 to 6. 5:30 is the tree lighting with Mayor Hernandez. 6 o'clock is the lighted parade. And then right after the parade will be the fireworks sponsored by Columbia REA. With this, for the lighted parade, there is a competition element for second and third best floats. And I would love y'all's help again as the judges. And so I'd love to have all of you, but I do need at least 3 of you. If anyone would be willing and able to be the judge for the lighted parade. You can sleep on it and get back to me.
I was like, can you put that out when I can look at my calendar a little closer? Maybe an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
What's involved in this?
Yeah, so you will be up front with the MC seated to watch the parade and then deliberate amongst yourselves on who wins each section for second and third. And then we wait until after the parade, so not even day of, to announce the winners. Mayor Hernandez signs their certificates and they get sent out. So essentially just watching the parade and picking your favorites. Any questions? This will be the last big event of the year, and then we start all over next year.
Excellent. Yes. So the trunk or treat was a huge success. So it's, that's what we had estimated is about 1,000 plus. So.
Okay.
Mike, community grant program.
Okay, thank you. Just putting this out there once again, if anyone on this board sees any edits we need to make to the application, what we do every year, so that way there's an orderly way of dispersing money, is we do a community grants program where soon after the citywide budget passes, where we actually know how much money is officially in this thing, it hits the streets, and then folks essentially have most of January completed and turn it in. I will say from last year, we did give an additional week just because coming back from winter break and such last year, it was a little bit too close. So you will notice that. And then in general, there's themes around civic engagement, solutions around health, environment, social resiliency, and parks and recreation, community asset building, economic development, or housing. And the idea here is that once we get in the applications, there'll be an ad hoc committee of folks representing all of our key commissions, including this one, that'll grade the proposals, and then essentially council historically has awarded the money based upon that. And over this would be our third year doing it. First year we ended up getting 4 proposals, and then last year it was like upwards of 9. So it's incrementally grown over the years. Questions?
Last year, it looked like it went out like the 19th of January. So you're thinking there and then 60 days.
Well, so no, it'll be due January 19th. The idea was that we would put it out on the streets the day after the budget passes.
Okay.
So that would be the second Wednesday of December.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions?
And you may have said, but what's the amount you guys are planning for?
The amount this year is identical to last year, at least as of right now. So that was around $20,000. Didn't put it in the form yet because it's not official until council passes the budget.
Sure.
And remind me the max that any one entity could get. Did you say that?
We've actually never set a max for it. I'll just say historically, whoever has been on the ad hoc, usually, I'll just say the top 4 have usually been like upwards of like 2,500 to 3,000. I mean, it really depends what's written and the amount of people impacted.
That's what I was thinking. It was around that in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that?
No, I just wanted to make sure it was in front of you all, because if you don't see issues with it, this is the form we'll use once the budget's passed, and we'll get it out on the streets.
Okay.
I'm curious to know what sorts of applications have we received in the past, just to get a flavor for what's coming in.
Yeah, it's really been a wide array. So I know, for instance, the youth program at Sunbridge was one of them that ended up getting it. Then Blue Mountain Action Council has gotten it in the past. The university has as well, for the Center for Humanitarian Engagement, to be doing outreach activities throughout the community. And then Campfire has gotten activity, some money from that as well. And then even Walla Walla Valley Academy, they received some to go renovate the auditorium area. So over the years, there's been a wide array.
So having received funding, does that keep people from applying again for other things, or is there any restriction there? Or
No, at least today, no one on the various ad hoc committees over years has expressed that, so we've never really ever broached that topic.
So pretty much it's just however the vote comes down on like who should be awarded what they're looking for.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to say it was 2 years ago, maybe not last year. I was on the scoring committee for one of them, and it really was. I think that was the year we just had 4.
Yeah,
and it was a really eclectic group of grants. I mean, not one of them had any similarity between them. It was kind of interesting, and that was the year I think that the auditorium renovation was on there. So there's some pretty interesting things. And I think with a grant of this size, there doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a time restriction on it. Usually, when you're doing that, you're talking 5-figure plus grant amounts before you limit time frames. So this is great.
Okay, moving on to College Place Arbor Day.
Yes, I just want to make sure you were all aware of this. So, about a little over a week ago, we had our local Arbor Day with the Davis school children over at Kiwanis Park. So another tree was planted. We do this every year for the local Arbor Day just because we've had more success planting the trees and them staying alive doing it this time of the year as opposed to the historical Arbor Day, given just how hot it gets around here in the summer. So we always usually set it at a date in October. So definitely big attendance again this year, and we'll look forward to doing it next year. But this is one of the requirements to keep up our Tree City designation, and we'll be applying to have the 7th year of that this year to keep that designation. And then the big project over the next 2 years they'll be implementing Arbor Day criteria will be the planting of the trees on the key corridors with that large forestry grant for Majania Road, and then Whitman Drive out by Martin Airfield, and then some stuff along 12th and the new east-west road. So that will definitely be a large enhancement to our tree canopy. Questions?
Okay, thank you. Draft community center floor plan and schematic.
Yep. So just bringing us before you again, and then just giving you some updates on things. So that community-minded enterprises, they're the one that's behind the childcare component. They filed ELF grant from the state for approximately $2.5 million. The Rural Library District, they officially passed a motion to be part of this project, so that's cool. And then there's also a library capital grant out right now from the state for about another $2.5 million that we're applying for, plus some state, the federal earmark, and then also a state earmark we're going after. So this it seems like the money is starting to flow together nicely here. One of the things though is that with that library capital grant, all the drawings you've seen today have been conceptual. So we're going to try putting some money for the full-fledged architectural plans. And one of the things we're going to end up doing is to expand the size of the commercial kitchen so more people can use it. So that's going to be the main key thing there. And then in the spring, we're going to negotiate, we'll get together and have a memorandum of understanding between the child care group, the library, and the city. That agreement will go before you all for recommendation. And then the next step of what we're doing as well is trying to apply for a phase 1 brownfield grant, because what that will help cover is analysis and remediation as we demo the current building, because there is some concern about the vintage in which that was built, about it having covered asbestos and other things. And if we get the brownfield grant and they do find something, they'll cover most of it. So it won't be at our cost, which would be a nice thing. So we're going to try to get that in queue for that, because at the last conference I was at, turns out that program isn't really utilized all on this side of the state. So they're actually sitting on quite a lot of money. So we believe that'll be a good way to remediate something if in fact it's there. We just don't know because we have no as-built drawings or anything of that. So that's going to be one of those things where we'll encounter it when we're dealing with it.
So exactly what's the vision for the commercial kitchen?
Yeah.
is that just for events that happen in the park, or is it going to be open?
It would be open to basically everyone. And what I'm looking at doing in the MOU is essentially having all three agencies help jointly fund like a coordinator position that can be more in charge of the building, because otherwise that's gonna get really messy and stuff. But it would be open for community members, and then really we see that as a boon of a farmers market, because it's been a louder and louder complaint over the years about the lack of that, especially since the Department of Health has been clamping down on that very hard in recent years.
Yeah, so when I looked at the drawing, it looked really small in comparison. So that was just a conceptual drawing.
That was just conceptual. This is not, but this is just to show you essentially all the activities we are in fact thinking of it. And we do have the ability to expand further, because luckily when we went through that whole National Park Service process, again, the building that's currently there certified, we actually put in a larger square footage that isn't considered park, so that way we don't end up in the same situation. Because just for everyone's knowledge of that, it turned out when that park was done in the 60s, apparently whatever agency the state had prior RCO gave money that was passed through from the National Park Service. And then all these decades later, we got flag audited for it, like in 2019. And they're like, hey, there's a building there that's not in our like napkin sketch from the 60s. And then we end up in like a 3-year petition process to like exclude like a square from the official park. Very interesting. Didn't know they could go that far back, but they can. So
there's now, you're saying it's excluded beyond what the building footprint is.
Exactly, because the concept even back then, since we knew it was going to be a painful process to get a square carved out, there was that if in fact we ever were to do a new building, it likely would be bigger than that, then we didn't want to have to suffer through the same process. So.
You know, one of the things that I think as we really get into the details of this, I'm excited about the possibility for the arts and live music and things, and having, you know, that patio off the back end. And so one of the things I think strategically we should look to do is find ways to make that be usable for longer periods of time. Meaning that it stays cool in the heat of the summer, but also has, you know, ample shade and for that, and then in the early fall where you could actually, you know, have heaters and things that people could continue to enjoy that, you know, beyond, you know, well into almost into November here. So I think that's you're going to eke out probably 9 months of really heavy use if we strategically use that outdoor space, you know, really well. So,
yep. And then also just provide updates on the park in general. It's, believe it or not, it's like out to bid finally. So yeah, I was starting to wonder if we'd ever see that day, but it is out to bid. So the goal, pending that none of the contractors like file appeals on each other and stuff, which can happen with a project of this size. So let's hope not. Is that we want to award this thing before the end of the year, so that way we can go into it full bore as soon as they can, and have it done all through spring and summer, and wrap it up by the end of the next summer.
Any other comments or questions on that?
I guess, do we have an overall structure for the community as far as people getting to that? I'm thinking of that becoming more of a town center. How does that relate to what we're doing on College Avenue
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say the goal is that recently we federally classified Southeast 8th Street from College Avenue to large. And what that allows is that we can finally get the feds allow it. So that allows us to get grant money for Southeast 8th. And I think to really tie it into College Avenue, we need to ensure that there's at least sidewalk on one side going all the way down. Because I mean, the big issue is right past where you're at, Jim, with Whispering Creek. As soon as you get past that, it goes to like an old like country road, and there's like no sidewalk, and it's super narrow. And also the crossing over Larch, because that is a busier street. So I know as part of the project, we're looking at beefing up the crossing at Larch, but there is quite a bit of work with the sidewalk. I mean, we're going to be starting it next year because we did get grant money to go build a sidewalk on 8th from College of Birch. So that's at least starting to head that direction. But there's gaps. We're going to need it. We've turned in grants already. We'll see if we get them. But we put in a grant application in the State Transportation Improvement Board to redo the road and fill in the sidewalk gaps between basically Birch and then where the subdivision is to the west of Whispering Creek, because there's sidewalk already there, and then to continue the sidewalk past Whispering Creek and tie it into Lions Park. And it's going to be really important because that creative district thing, which we're finally getting to the point of getting the application, and the creative district basically goes out that way to encompass Lions Park. So
Yeah, I'm just envisioning a community where it's very easy for families say, oh, let's go walk down to the park. Kids are on the bicycles, walking, that there is a clear, obvious way to get there.
yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it really is, especially on the farmers market nights, the foot traffic, and when it bottlenecks there right as it hits Larch, it's pretty dicey for families with small children trying to bike along there, as narrow as it is. So
Yeah.
okay, anything else on that? Okay, so we'll move on to Veterans Day.
Yep. So just to notify the board, every year we're a contributor to the Veterans Day Parade over in downtown Walla Walla. So that is coming up once again on November 11th at 11:11 a.m. And then you'll see the proclamation Mayor Hernandez passed as well, but just letting everyone know that we participate in that parade and help sponsor it, because I know over years some folks in the community have asked for us to have our own, but there just isn't the critical mass and it fizzles out. So we've just have gone to partnering with them, so that way it's a more substantial event.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Any comments on that? Okay, draft of the fiscal year 24 to 29 capital facility plan.
Thank you. So this is an action item because typically we try to get recommendations from all of our advisory bodies before it then elevates up to the council level. So there's two documents. The one you have the ordinance, you have the early draft plan, which is essentially the Cliff's Notes of the capital facility plan. And then if you want a lot of reading, you can go to the booklet form, because the booklet form is like over 90 pages, the details projects. Or if you go in the booklet, it says essentially the estimated cost split of how things are estimated to be paid out, a map of where it's at, and then a general picture. So that way there's the knowledge. of what's going on. And then projects are ranked high, medium, and low, and that just helps in case we get into a situation like a recession or some larger level calamity where we have to be nimble with resources. So high means it's a priority, it happens no matter what. Medium means that we're trying to get grants for it and we're working for it to happen, but if like the bottom falls out, it may be delayed. And then low means that we're eventually getting to it, but we're really trying to get grants to get it across the finish line. I will say typically projects that are coming up for the next year usually are in the high category, and the stuff further out inherently is just low because you're looking pretty far out in the horizon. So I will go over the items in the essentially the Cliff's Notes section here, just because it's on one page, so it's easier. Really, next year, you'll notice that there's some minor work at other parks, but just because of the raw amount of money it's going to cost, it's all hands on deck moment to finally wrap up Lions Park. So Lions Park will be under construction. When you look at the spreadsheet, you'll see the finance split is quite extensive with the amount of grants and everything. So that'll definitely be a bear to manage, but that'll be going on all through next spring and summer. Then Kiwanis Park, we have some money in there for that, and that project is going on currently, but it'll likely go over a little bit into next year because of supply chain issues. So we're putting electrical in there since the farmers market needs to move there next summer. And then also the general concept is a re-roof that gazebo because it's starting to have some infiltration issues and things like that. And then also next year, and this board will be heavily engaged in it, will be the engineering and design for the additional amenities over at Veterans Park. So we did get a grant for that, and the way that's written is the engineering is all through next year, and then the construction of it would be the year after, and that would be add amenities like basketball court, pickleball, and then restroom. So those are the key projects for next year. And then moving around some other things we have, in 2025, you'll see that we have placeholders, and it's merely what it is at the moment because we're still really costing out stuff. But the improvements for the Autumn Meadows Park that we discussed at this board over the past months, and then same with the Whitman and Maple Park site. And those projects could both bump up sooner dependent on our success to get grants. I will say to get even more grants, what we're going to have to do is next year our park plan expires. So this board's going to be engaged in redoing that because for the State Recreation Conservation Office grants, you have to have a active park plan adopted by a city council. And then the strange part is it doesn't expire the same vintage your comprehensive plan expires. So really in a normal world, that should all go together, but the state doesn't do that for some reason. So the park plans expire every 6 years, and then the comp plans expire every 8 years. So that's a little weird. The big heavy lift in the park plan will be listing out the newer park properties because while we made headway the last time having a discernible pathway forward on what we had, there's a lot of different stuff that's gone down since like 2018. So for instance, the Whitman and Maple site, there was nothing mentioned about that because at the time it was a site for a well, which I mean the well is out there, so it didn't take the the whole thing. And then back then we weren't going to be out at Martin Airfield, and now Martin Airfield's in the city. And then that big development at by the high school, we now have discernible plans for that. So there's a lot of additional stuff we're going to have to finesse in that plan for the next couple of years. Other items you'll see in this is that we have a placeholder for the park development at Stone Creek because due to the size and the scope of the development, we can make the developer essentially give the land and then give money and amenities for park equipment and such. But I think if we want to position it as like a park that has multiple uses, and I know Jim and I have talked about that, then I think it's going to require concerted effort of the city schools and then some grants to do that. So that way it's over and above what essentially you can just make a developer do. So you'll see that there's a placeholder for that park development near Stone Creek of 4.5 million, and that's out a couple years. And then the other item at the very end is the Lions Park Community Center. And you'll see the estimated split on that. The totality of the project is about $10.1 million. And that's just going to end up being a stack of funding that essentially gets that accomplished between all the partners. But those are the key and salient projects for the park element of the capital facility plan. And then for general interest, there's other projects in that capital plan for the other realms of the city, but within the purview of the board, those are the items for parks and such. Questions?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
I end up just doing the abbreviated form of this because last month at council at the workshop, the booklet form, I actually read page by page, and the meeting went 4.5 hours. So yeah.
Well, thank you for the Cliff's Note version.
I am curious about Stone Creek, and that's sort of like on the other side of Lions Park. As far as like agenda items, it's like a ways down the road from what I understand.
I believe so, because Lions Park, I mean, we're gonna position the phase 1 part of that where it'll finally be closed out next year. Stone Creek, they're gonna be going through what's called the master plan development process because there's several phases to that. So that's all gonna be through next spring and summer, and they'll be before our hearing examiner. So that needs to be approved before they really start turning dirt down there. So I think I think you'll see it where the earliest they could start doing things would probably be like next fall. And that's barring that there's like no appeal or anything. I don't think there could be, because the diversity of land uses out there, we've stated for years and years, and that's what it would be predicated upon. But yeah, by the time you get enough development out there where legally you can make them essentially start to give the land for the park, it ends up being a couple years out. And then plus you have to remember, in our last park plan, it was completely mute on any of that. So I mean, this board's gonna have to verbalize what you even want out there, because in the park plan that exists right now, there's like a sentence in there that says, "Oh, we think a park will be out there," but there's nothing as far as to what.
Well, my understanding is there's was it Garrison? It's not Garrison. It's one of the creeks that'll run through
Stone Creek.
Portion of that.
Yeah.
There may be some really good opportunities to utilize that lower land that is too close to the water anyway, and would be like maybe excellent bird watching or recreational trail that can kind of stretch along and be more scenic. I don't know. Norman, you have a much better sense for what's going on out in that neck of the woods, but
Yeah, well, I'm very interested as kind of like what the commercial development of that space is anticipated. I mean, to have something that ties it together so that, somebody's staying in a hotel there, they go out the door, there's a walking trail along that. So yes, there's a park in the sense of playgrounds and a destination, but it's something that connects the community together at the same time.
And I will say in some of the early level drawings I've seen from them, that's essentially what they're proposing, to have a park along the creek and so forth. And then what they're also looking at doing is that the Army Corps of Engineers, they actually have this like ecological renovation grant thing for streams like that, where they'll pay for like 50% of that. So the developer is very interested in engaging with them to do that kind of work along Stone Creek. And that's going to become really important because one of the things I can say, because it's in their plan and I'm also on their board, is that in that area, the Walla Walla YMCA is looking at putting a satellite facility out there too. So it's going to be really key to tie everything all together, because not only do we have this development that Lakeside is doing, but then there's currently an annexation petition at play for land just south of that that Charlie Conan and others have put together to do additional homes beyond that. So
Interesting. Well, yeah, tying in like cycling and walking and making it a community asset, there's got to be some thought that goes into that. And I know it's a ways out, but I don't know how many of you have walked along the path on Garrison Creek that's a sort of adjoining the villages. But there's some nice natural settings through there. They put the path on the opposite side. A lot of the housing is pretty close to the creek. I don't know that that's ideal, but it does sort of, when you're on the trail on the other side, it's a really nice environment.
yeah.
And I don't know that we want to copy that directly, but those spaces I think are super valuable and provide a transportation role, also sort of a state of mind sort of benefit to the community. So anyway, just curious where that's going.
Well, and I would say keep in mind that with that park plan that you're all going to be involved in, I mean, you're going to have the opportunity through that to essentially say what you want out there, and then we have the ability to direct them in that light. So it's going to be really important for you all to think about what is in that thing, because that's going to set the pathway not only for that development, but then the stuff that's like going on at like Martin Airfield. Because I mean, again, the airfield's going to remain an airfield and stuff, but it's the stuff like behind that though that could have some additional housing. So I mean, whatever's in that plan is what's going to end up being like out there for the next decades to come. So it's going to be important to get it right.
Yeah, and there may be a way to tie some of this stuff together. Like, see, there's a cycling path that we could tie together with what's going on along Whitman, doing some things there that could tie the community together in a way. One of the things I've found to be very helpful, and maybe other members here can state what they think about it, but when we've been discussing what's going on with the park over near Harvest, and then what we're doing over near the water towers, having consultants who sort of like look at the topography and kind of make some suggestions. Yeah. From my standpoint, that's really helpful. From a creative standpoint, figuring out what they do. I think they've been doing tremendous work. And, they were very aware of what our comments were and came back with very appropriate responses. If we had some sort of early kind of look at what they might suggest in a space like that, we might be able to get, more accurately articulate what our desires as part of the community would be, but starting early would be a benefit, I would think. But, you know, I know we got other things to work on too.
Well, I was going to piggyback on that because when I initially see this, if you've ever been to Manitou Park in Spokane,
Oh, yeah.
it's just a really rich, neat park with lots of nature trails and there's a pond and there's trees and so I wondered, you know, kind of piggyback on what Leif said, is it possible that they don't not even necessarily design anything, but say based on this topography, here are some examples of like spaces that are already in existence that are on record that you might take a look at to see how they're designed and what they include.
Yeah, so in the budget proposal for next year, we have money in there to hire a consultant to do the plan and do exactly what you're saying. So, which ties back in my comment that next year is going to be a busy year that way, because that consultant is going to be working with you all in the community and not only figuring out what goes out there, but I mean, even the stuff that goes behind Martin Airfield is going to trigger that park requirement. So trying to figure out what that looks like too.
Well, and Leif and I will jump in his Volkswagen bus and go from park to park across the country.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Better be a YouTube series or something.
Yeah.
Don't leave me at the gas station.
Yeah. Place that.
Well, I am interested in, I mean, there's something about how Stone Creek is, how it flows, because some of the neighborhoods, there's houses right next to it, and it's this narrow thing like 10 feet wide. And you get out in this area and all of a sudden the wetlands are, you know, 100, 150. Say, okay, there's going to need to be some understanding. And as I say wetlands, then right now it's completely dry, and say, okay, what is a appropriate environmental, but also to have our usage complementary to it and not.
Right.
Yeah.
The one other thing I was curious on, and it's not especially parks related, but I noticed the part about downtown private lots.
Yeah.
And that's something we obviously have talked about, you know, with the new apartment complex going in and things like that. I'm just curious if there's any more of a plan around what that might look like or where that's intended.
Yeah, so what I think is we've had discussion with some property owners, and some of the ones I was like really hoping for, it looks like they aren't there yet. So, but what we do have is there's a property across the street. There's a very big piece of property in the middle of the block that has like a lot of overgrowth in it and like an easement going to it that could have like a driveway. And that owner actually is interested in selling. So we've commissioned an appraisal right now because we have to do that before we go back and forth. But we're actively engaged in that site, and all this would be paid for with the TIF funds because council adopted that TIF district earlier this year. And then the other thing we are starting to have active conversations with is that Wawa University, they have a new financial vice president who's very engaged in, I would say, alternative methods of delivery for projects, and we're in discussions with them about some potential long-term leases to do that on some properties that they have scattered through College Avenue. So we basically had to do some additional thinking around that, because I will say there is a local property owner who has some key properties that really would have been awesome to do, but you need two a tango on that one. So
Thanks, I appreciate that.
yeah.
So this is an action item, and so we will need a motion to approve the 24-29 capital facility plan.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Gonna be an exciting few years, Mike. Good work. Thank you.
Yes, hold on tight.
Thanks.
All right, our next meeting is scheduled for the 26th of January. And the only thing standing between us and that is Winterfest. So we will adjourn. Thank you.